This is Aaron and Chris here with Josh behind the camera, Sights on the City, and we're talking about a lot of stuff. Today we're at Spectre Arts here in the Golden Belt district of Durham, talking with Alicia Lange, who is the proprietor of this gallery and studio space. We're talking about the arts, a lot of different shows, Gideon Mandel's work currently on view here through March, and talking about the Area 919 show at the Nasher Art Museum with 13 local artists showing at the big Nasher, and then also talking about a bunch of development stuff.
Yeah, all kinds of different things. Jeff Bell, who showed here and then is part of the Area 919 show, also going to be the director of the 21C Museum downtown.
Yeah.
So we talked about neighborhood issues. Alicia is involved locally and in the community and part of what's going on in the Golden Belt district, as well as showing a bunch of wonderful art. So check it out. Check us out on YouTube, on the Clarion Content YouTube channel. Check us out on Twitter at the Clarion Content, online at Clarion Content Media. Of course, Chris Vitiello, Vitiello, and Josh Hart on the other side of the camera. Thanks a bunch.
Though was telling me that formerly all of these streets used to have names after flowers.
Yeah.
And so he did a facade on his building on Main Street, and it's Morning Glory flowers. So
gorgeous.
Yeah, I thought that was a little nice tidbit of history.
Yeah.
It's a happy place.
Yeah, we were saying earlier off camera that you were meeting with some of the neighbors and some of the local residents, and I'd love to circle back to that at some point. But just in the further context of the story of the building is now Spectre Arts.
Spectre
you
Arts.
guys have been here for
a year and a half. We were under construction for about 2 years, so we will be open 2 years this coming May.
That is pretty fantabulous, and we're sitting in front of some amazing prints.
Gideon Mandel's work.
Drowned World.
Drowning
World.
Gideon Mandel is a South African originally out of Johannesburg who got his start shooting Mandela during apartheid and then realized the impact he could have through his photography and shooting work that sort of documented social justice, and started working with a lot of NGOs, moved to London, where he had a little bit more access. And this is a personal project of his, where he travels around the world and shoots or documents climate change through floods. So it's a huge topic. We're dealing with climate change right now. How warm is it? And it's January. It's sort of ridiculous, but these are a portrait series that sort of throws it in your face and
right. For you as the viewer, there's 8 of them, or is that correct? 9 of them around the room. They're amazing. And Chris, you were going to say?
Well, so the story is Mandel is doing sort of work through an NGO. He's there to do some type of documentary work, and also as a working artist, he is in that sort of in the context of that project also taking photographs and his artistic practices, part and parcel in his life with his professional practice, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of what an artist does, though, don't they?
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking during that whole thing. That's what we're aiming for, right? That's what I want. I want my professional and artistic practices to fuse in this beautiful writing symphony.
Yeah. I mean, but these are photographs that are taken all over the world. I think there are 3 or 4 continents that are represented just in these 9 images.
Yeah.
And there's video as well.
There's a video documentary which does not have narration, that sort of goes through him in the process of getting to these areas, meeting these people, and documenting real time what's going on.
Yeah. I was out here for Third Friday, and I think it's kind of a point to remember that if you don't get out Third Friday, it doesn't mean the art isn't still here. This is, for real.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah. Well, I missed Third Friday, I'll just go next month. No.
I hear that all too often, I think. And this stuff, I mean, you can look each of these people in the eye and think, Mandel had to be looking them in the eye at a really crisis low point in their lives, like a real moment. I don't know if you've ever personally been flooded, or even just like your basement's been flooded. Flooding destroys shit.
And fire,
yeah, fire too, right? That's why there are those 4 elementals, right? I think.
Yeah, I mean, actually, when I was a child, my house burned down, and so when you look at these images, I see they're in their spaces, they're in their homes, they're in their working environments, and there's nothing left. There's nothing that they have. Their memories are gone. In the video, you can see pictures of family members trying to peel apart images and save them. But when a natural disaster like this hits, there's nothing left. You have to start over, and that does a lot to the psychology of a person.
Definitely.
And the development of the community itself. So it's really important to acknowledge what these people are going through on many different levels.
And just the recovery time after, for a community after a disaster that affects literally every single structure in the area is just so much longer than one would imagine. You figure, oh well, the water level will go down, they'll sort of air stuff out, they'll rebuild some things and get back up and running. But and particularly since a good number of these images are in what we'd call the developing world, I mean, there are areas that never kind of get back to where they were before the water, I would imagine. It just inexorably changes the community almost overnight.
Yeah, I thought there was also an interesting sort of balance too with what's going on in Durham in terms of, a lot of the buildings over in the new 5 Points areas have struggled with mold issues and water issues. The water table here is a problem. A few years ago, FEMA updated the flood zones. And Durham, actually, Ellerby Creek is, in a lot of these developments that were created back in the 70s and 50s, Ellerby Creek was buried underground. They didn't really have the knowledge base on how to deal with that. And now, because of it, a lot of the buildings where people live are suffering.
Sure.
And it's bringing about health issues.
Sure.
And
mold is terrible for people's health, breathing.
Well, and Ellerby Creek is still a mess. I've lived in Northgate Park almost the entirety of the time I've been here. I moved here just before Hurricane Fran, and I was living just a block off of the park. And the house that backed up onto my house that faced the park, the flood water from Ellerby Creek came up through the floorboards of that house. It didn't get up to, I was up on a hill, so. But it was, I mean, the whole park, the park itself was under some feet of water. Cars were pulled into the actual groove of the creek, and it's still, I mean, when we get a hard rain, that creek leaps up from a trickle, a nice still trickle to, it raises 4 or 5 feet easily. The city dug out the basin of the creek to give it more turf, but, it was still, there's sort of 1 or 2 really good dousings that will get some of those massive summer downpours, at 5 in the afternoon, and will still really push the banks there.
Well, part of that too is that dredging wasn't occurring on a regular basis, and so now I think with all of this building and development coming in and the city's master plan, I think that they're trying to incorporate this infrastructure so that the city will survive this lifetime and we can keep sort of regenerating, because that's what we're doing right now. It's urban renewal.
It does seem like it's sort of a tile game, like they're saying, okay, well, we fixed it here, and the fix here caused the problems over here, so we'll fix it there, and they're just like they're chasing they're sort of chasing the problem down the line.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues that we're always going to have to deal with. I think that, you know, unfortunately, with the way that the city is growing exponentially, there isn't enough manpower. And there are a lot of people who are trying to contribute to the situation, but part of that's a knowledge base. And part of it's just being in the know. And with so many new things going on, it's hard. And I think people are trying to get to that point. So, you know, we'll see how that sort of
Hopefully we're
manifests.
spreading the word right now, you know, on this. I mean, frankly, I didn't know Ellerby Creek had been buried under this neighborhood, you know, and I do know, of course, the above ground Ellerby Creek sections, but I didn't know that was impacting the overall floodplain here and what that means. And I think kind of the writ large of like looking at people and global warming and the writ small of looking at Durham, it's not a question of just warming and weather or just the Ellerby Creek flooding. It's how different communities get serviced and impacted by that. You know, we're, like you said, most of these people are in the developing world, you know, like when your house falls off a cliff in La Jolla, I feel like you get a different deal than when your place gets flooded.
Yeah,
you know?
probably have insurance for that. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and even when they won't, like then the feds step in, you know, because it's a tornado or, you know, a hurricane, they're like, oh, well, actually, we're gonna use FEMA to guarantee. And, you know, sometimes I think that they do try and help both the top and the bottom, but as we look at it in our Durham world, and you were saying that you were meeting with some of your East Durham neighbors, what's going on in terms of development out here? Or what is there that we should be talking about? I mean, to the extent that I'm trying to write about and cover Durham and be on top of it, and I didn't even know this Ellerby Creek flooding issue and what all else, you know, why are you guys meeting, or what are the issues that are on the table that people want to talk about or that you're getting together over?
In East Durham specifically is what.
Yeah, we're on Morning Glory and in a great, like, transitioning neighborhood, but nonetheless, you know, we're talking about our mutual friend across the street, fabulous, you know, filmmaker, educator. What is going on at these meetings, or what are people meeting about?
Well, I think that there's a lot of progressive people down here. I think that everyone wants to look ahead and make sure that everyone's planning appropriately. And I think everyone's very interested in defining a community down here. And in a lot of ways, Golden Belt as a district is unique because it's off the beaten path of what's considered the downtown or inner city circle.
Sure. You have health and human services between you and here, that big
Yeah, we'll have the police
monolith.
department too.
That
We'll eventually be
and
there.
police
Depending
department.
on.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people are interested in continuing the development over here and creating a unique community that, you know, people from all over can visit, but that people who live here and exist here, a lot of them artists and creative people like your friend, can come and get a cup of coffee or come and do some shopping.
Where'd you guys meet?
Gyms.
No, the meetings, like the neighborhood meetings.
Well, actually, we were here.
Oh, that's so awesome. You hosted it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What a great co-use of space. And thank you for letting us be here today. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you know, but wouldn't it be interesting if we could grab a bite to eat down here too?
Sure, that'd be great. Right?
Yeah.
We were saying something, you know, about the same thing in the downtown loop with the balance of, is there still affordable lunch inside the downtown loop? And if there is, where is it and how much does it cost? You know, and I think, you know, frequently I knew, like, for example, I would be able to park very easily over here. You know, we have some of that still, but...
Yeah.
But in tow with that, you know, the Bull City Connector has a stop right up here at the entrance to Golden Belt. It's free. A lot of people...
task for not taking the bus.
Well, no, but
No,
you know,
yes.
it's another way to get over here. I think a lot of the people who are moving here too are interested in biking and walking. And
Super easy to bike to downtown from here.
Yes. Well,
It's
technically, this is
startlingly
still
close.
downtown.
Yeah. The Bull City Connector is great. I mean, do you see a lot of people who are coming here for events using the connector to get here, or are they, wedging their cars into the side streets here?
We did have some people this past Third Friday who rode down on the Bull City Connector. During the day too, before the scrap exchange moved, there were a lot of Duke students using the bus to get over here because they don't have cars. And that's really nice to see.
No doubt.
I mean, depending on the time of day, you'll see there's an older folks home right up the street. You'll see a lot of those guys riding the bus because they don't have transportation or they can't walk. It's really nice.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's nice that we have that resource available. I hope they continue to expand that. And I also hope that they continue to define the bike lane down here, because I think that's really important considering we have businesses like the Elf and there's how many bicycle companies down here?
Oh yeah, tons. We definitely have a really strong biking community, and the last year has seen a whole bunch of meetings on bike safety, unfortunately, because we've seen a bunch of bike tragedies. But this is
bikes around.
Right. This has certainly got to be a neighborhood where biking is a relevant issue because of how close we are and how people would like to bike. I know when Mercury Studios was over on Mangum, it was definitely bikeable from here, and there were people in this neighborhood that biked. Yeah. So I guess we want to, talk?
Well, we had wanted to talk about the Area 919 show at the Nasher.
Yeah.
And there's a good segue, because actually one of the artists in that show, Stacy Lynn Waddell, has a studio about a frisbee throw from here, just in almost an adjacent building.
How about there's like 2.5 degrees worth of Durham separation with 4 segues, because several of the artists in that show showed in here, right?
A few of them, yeah. Actually, yeah, Stacy's studio is over here. Heather Gordon has a studio over here. He's a pretty prominent fixture in the art scene. And Stacy Kirby, also, who was in the Area 919 show, did the performance piece, has a studio over in the Cordova Center. So,
To me, I was thinking first though, Jeff Bell, whose work was in here with all those crazy bent pianos, right?
Yeah, Jeff. Sure. That was the second time he has dismantled a piano.
This is a must-see if you haven't seen it. And I asked,
Nautilus.
I asked him. He said, "I guess there's a bunch of photos on your website," because I don't know. I wasn't over here for that show. I missed it. That just sounds crazy to you.
Oh yeah, the piece in the Nasher is, it's called Nautilus. So it sort of takes the kind of golden cast iron. Metal guts of a piano as a kind of central
like a rudder
rafter of the hull, and then piano wood. I know that he built a steam box and steamed the wood so he could bend it.
Steam box.
Yeah, he's pretty fantastic.
It just looks like a boat is emerging from the gallery floor. It's great.
So they found him from you. How'd you find him?
I don't know if they found him.
I'm teasing a little bit, but in our 2.5 degrees of Durham separation world, he was here, and then the Nashers.
Yeah, there's, a lot of the artists that have been working here have been working in the Triangle area for a long time. And I thought one of the things that was so great about the Area 919 show is that they're being recognized on a larger platform. So Jeff Bell, Bill Thalen, who also owns Lump Gallery, Harrison Haynes, Stacy Lynn Waddell, and Stacy Kirby, Casey Cook, all of those guys have been working in this area for an extensive period, years, and developing their careers, and they've shown on a national and a local level. But to be recognized by an artist like the Nasher, I think is a great validation, not only to them as artists, but a drive for artists in this community to keep working towards that representation and of work.
And I think the Nasher should get a lot of credit for for wanting to bring area artists into their space, and it's something that you see all around the Triangle. the North Carolina Museum of Art established a North Carolina gallery in the old building. And plenty of the people in the Area 919 show have been parts of they generally do group shows, and it does cover the whole state. But they've shown there before. That's actually the first place I saw Stacy Lynn Waddell's work was in that gallery. Cam Raleigh this past year did North Carolina Arts Council Fellowship Winners Show. Again, some of the people in Area 919 were in that show, and Stacey Kirby had a big performance installation down in the basement at Cam.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
So they've been around, and the Ackland has also shown a number of the people too in some group shows.
I do feel like
it's cool to see the Nasher. The sort of I love the Nasher. But I know that they also struggle a little bit against that image of the white palace on the hilltop,
well, they are White Palace on the hilltop. They're showing Moreau alongside the 919. That's who they are. But
it's something that they're aware of, and they're addressing.
Proactively addressing it.
Yeah.
And I think it was really interesting just to get a tidbit that we did earlier off camera to think in terms of, and this predates me, but you were saying the precursor to the Nasher and the size and the scale of that, so as to understand that, it's not just that the Nasher is the palace on the hill, it's a scale at which Duke reinvested, I think, in art and an art museum. Hugely, and to the benefit of the community. The Nasher is a tremendous resource. I think it's part of what influenced my parents to move here was like, wow, look, they have that kind of
Sure. And just to sum that up, Duke used to have the Duke University Museum of Art, the DUMA, and the collection of the DUMA, because they were a collecting institution, did transfer to the Nasher. So the DUMA's work is down in the basement. But the DUMA was an obligatory gesture. We're a university, we need to have an art museum. Where are we going to stick one? Well, there's some empty space in this academic building. So it was part of an academic building. It was not a standalone building. And it was taken seriously. They had a director and Michael Mezzatesta. He did good shows, collected a lot of late 20th century Russian art. But it didn't have any profile. It was anonymous compared to institutions like the Ackland at UNC Chapel Hill, or the NCMA, for instance, as standalone buildings. Mm-hmm. But when the idea for the Nasher Museum came along, it's a jump. It wasn't a transition from DUMA to Nasher. It was the university completely changing their conceptualization of what an art museum could be. They didn't want to just give their collection a new home. They wanted to make an institution that was going to be one of the significant institutions in the Southeast United States. So.
Well, and
I think they did.
Yeah. I think the other thing to recognize too is its proximity to the Durham local area and its accessibility. One of the NCMA just did that huge renovation a few years ago, and it's a wonderful space, but it's also hard to get to. Whereas the Nasher is very accessible. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of programs for different age groups.
They have free Thursdays every week. They work hard to integrate with the community, and I think it's just, one, really interesting to see that here they are doing this show of the community, and then two, that as a community, it's just a resource that we can go to that by comparison, again, the parking is $1.50 an hour. The 919 opening was free. When I was in there interviewing, the 2 days before, the head of display at Tate Modern, was speaking.
Yeah, they have an annual lecture.
The Siemens lecture, whatever. Yeah, so it just always feels like that New York scale at that Durham price, and that's one of my favorite parts about this town is when you can get that level of culture and just it feels so reasonably priced.
Yeah.
How long is Gideon Mandel's work here?
Mandel's work will be up till March 6th.
And
Thank you. At 1004 Morning Glory in Spectre Arts. You guys are open every third Friday, right? As well as by appointment, right?
Yes, we're working on getting open hours so people can
Volunteers, we need volunteers and interns to show up and
Yeah.
offer their services to help
Yeah.
spread the
Thank
time
you.
that art can be available.
That would be great.
Yes.
Glad that Aaron didn't just think that up on the fly.
Well, maybe, but it seems like a beautiful thing. So, Chris, this has been a terrific conversation. Alicia, really so
Thank you.
generous.
For joining us, and thank you for
Thanks for
bringing us into
showcasing
space.
the images. They're amazing.
Yeah, it really is fantastic. I mean, hauntingly beautiful, wonderful, force you to think about, the world at large as well as our own community and social justice and how are we taking care of each other and our neighbors.
Yes.
Great to know that you're out there talking to your neighbors. Thank you.